You're listening to The Valley Current.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, what's new?
How are you?
I'm good. What's up? What's happening in Myrony land?
Myrony land?
Yeah, Myrony land.
The guests that I keep getting have been amazing on the podcast, which has been really kind of incredible.
You're becoming a better and better interviewer.
Oh, have you been listening?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think the skills take about 10 years to develop, and you're accelerating way beyond that. I mean, lawyers tend to be pretty good interviewers, most of them, but a lot of them don't like going on anything that has an audience. They are too introspective. But when you get really good at it, as you are, and you're getting even better and better, it does become a really sharpened skill. And people that are really, really good at it are exceptional. And there aren't that many. And there are a lot
it's interesting.
That
I don't even
aren't that good.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm saying. I just go on intuition. I mean, it's literally, I just know I'm guided to how it's going to go. I do a little bit of research if I don't, but not, because I honestly want the surprise factor. I don't want to know everything about them. I don't even want to know what my one criteria is just have a good Myrony and we're going to see where it takes us.
Right. It's got to be, these days for most audiences, it's got to be spontaneous and authentic, and it's got to sound that way. It's got to feel that way. It's got to look that way. Anything that appears to be too scripted is often viewed as, I've heard this, they're selling something, they're trying to market something, there's some catch here, it's not really a genuine conversation. So I think the best ones are the ones that, like what you're doing, that are very spontaneous and do themselves unfold various observations that maybe haven't even been noticed before, that people are like, oh yeah, I'm just realizing, gosh, that's like a small world thing. It's happening right now. I'm realizing some things that happened in past lives, and I'm noticing something that really makes a difference, and you bring it out in people. And I think that's a real virtue, and it gets better and better. And I'm sure whenever it happens that you're actually able to do it in the same room with the guest, like a radio booth or a radio room or a podcast room, it's probably going to be even more enhanced, because there is something about being in the same room that you pick up on the small nuances that you might not get on Zoom or WebEx or anything else.
Yeah, I have a really big podcast, a big spiritual podcast that's coming out, but doesn't come out till February.
Well, if you're a podcaster, you got to get on a lot of other shows so that people find out about yourself. It's like a network of different people. And I guess there are actually some people that sell slots. They literally try to get people to pay money to get on a show, like advertising. I mean, I've never really believed in that, but I think there are people who say, well, that's the real way to propel yourself. Get invited by Joe Rogan to talk about what you're doing. And of course, he gets a show out of it, plus he gets a bunch of money. Right. And I guess his audience gets whatever comes out of that interaction. I don't think that Elon Musk had to pay to go on his show.
I'm sure not.
I mean, there are people, and I've been wondering kind of, when does Donald Trump start hitting the podcast regime, because he's been cut off from Twitter, and It's got to be driving him crazy, right? But
I know, not being able to see anything.
I mean, it's like he's probably ready to implode at this point. I mean, I think he really likes stirring the pot. And once you take that microphone away, and there were a lot of people that thought this should have happened, of course, many years ago. And we have a strong First Amendment in the United States. So this is really an interesting situation, because Twitter and others are not technically governmental actors. So there's no real governmental shutdown of his First Amendment right. If he wants to go outside and use a megahorn to talk about, everything that he's doing, I don't think anyone could stop him. What they're saying is he's inciting a riot, And that's sort of this exception that you can't declare fire or scream fire in a theater and cause everyone to trample each other out of the exit, right? That's just always been an exception. You can't incite violence. You can't do stupid things that do get people, unfortunately, to react in ways that cause, I guess in this case, 5 deaths. I was surprised to hear it was even 1, but there's been reports now of 5 different people being killed. It's pretty amazing. I don't know.
Yeah, I had a friend who's a firefighter out there, and he had to recover 2 of the bodies. Which was,
wow.
Ooh, yeah,
right.
He was right in the midst of it.
So do you think ultimately the bigger mission is that people will become, with That's Myrony and with the practice that you're showing them, much more observant of their own lives and the connections of different things in their own lives? I mean,
as soon as I bring it up to people, they start seeing it. Like, you want to hear a really funny Myrony is he was my first client. I mean, I've been working with people, I've been doing this for years. And maybe after your after your session with Deanne, because your session's tomorrow, isn't it?
I think so, right.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
These messages that have been given that are in my possession, they speak on such a soul level. And so the work that I do is I'm talking at a soul level. And in addition to the tools of the books, and that's what allows people to see wherever their blocks are. But then these messages that I give in addition to that is what hits home. So what's really funny is the Myrony is this, it was a potential client for real estate. He actually did all of Landmark. You're familiar with Landmark, correct?
Is that the theater change?
No, Landmark, it's known as the curriculum of living. It's a really interesting program.
Okay, yeah, okay, I know. Yes, I know, yes.
So I actually did all of Landmark. I was guided to do that. And it's very interesting because it's all with the power of word. And I totally understand why I did this work. But the thing is Landmark doesn't get to go deep enough. They basically want you to be able to let go of your past by just being like, it doesn't really mean anything because it's only, the words that we associate it. But, that's the whole construct of Landmark is, understand your past to be clear in your present, to create whatever future you want, all with the power of word. It's very, very powerful, but it just doesn't go deep enough. So I realized that Landmark are amazing tools. And then we have our guides, and our guides, our spiritual books, whatever you want to call it. But if we just have a guide, great, we have a guide. If we just have tools, we're just throwing a bunch of tools around. But what if we put the guide and the tools together, then we have real power. So it was very funny because my client, he actually is, he was in his early 60s, IBM, works for IBM. He's actually Mexican Catholic, but he started going down different paths of, meditation, and he was meditating all the time. And he did all of Landmark plus like 10 seminars. He did so much in the way of Landmark. And he's like, I feel like, and this all happened at this meeting of, potentially for real estate. And he's like, I feel like Landmark's done everything I can, because we had a mutual friend. That was the Myrony. We had a mutual friend. So he opened the door and I walked in. And he's like, I was like, I actually totally agree that Landmark can only go so deep. And then we talked a little bit later. I said, I was like, I know you said that you still feel really stuck. I said, I know how to help you. And so he worked 8 weeks with me. And in those 8 weeks, in 6 weeks, he was finally able to let go of guilt.
Wow.
Guilt that he'd carried around for his entire life.
How many sessions did you do with him over the 8-week period? Like roughly?
Once a week.
And is it an hour or 2 hours a week?
Hour. Yeah, sometimes I would run over longer with him, but I usually do an hour.
So that runs into like 8 to 10 hours of time. Is that the accumulation of it all? And you observe some patterns that he might not observe. Is that part of what you're doing when you talk to him?
Well, that was the biggest Myrony, is that he committed to doing this. He went for a walk, and his biggest thing is that he's in a marriage that he's not happy, and he had a soulmate relationship that he had to leave in Mexico. But I was explaining, he has a soul contract, and, that's why he has his kids, and any way else he wouldn't have had his kids. So, not to look at it as a negative. And but he's just like, I just want to find love and be happy. He literally found this little figurine of these two mice with like a heart on his walk, less than an hour after our conversation. He now has this little figurine that is his little reminder. So the Myrony showed up. That's how Myrony. So it's like you bring the awareness, and then they start showing up for people.
So it's like your sense of sight is improving as you walk on a beach, that you might not otherwise notice things, because you are sort of enhanced certain perceptual powers that are now translated into, oh, I noticed something that maybe is speaking to me, whatever it could be. It could be a piece of garbage, but it's got something written on it, or it's got something that is sending a message. It's like people sometimes get this from art. They'll look at a particular picture and they'll see something that really speaks to them. They have to be in the right frame of mind to do it. And I'm not even sure that the art museums, even they've been around for thousands of years, I don't really know that they actually get what you've just said, but there's an argument that what you just said should be taught in art schools with respect how art sometimes reaches people at a critical moment, where they're looking at something and the art itself is speaking to them about a direction that they need to take. It's almost like, not to keep using Donald Trump, but I think there must be in his head a really big issue of, does he resign? Does he get impeached? Does he get, what does he do to kind of gracefully exit this terrible situation? And I guess there's enough art hanging around in the White House that has, been there forever, that has spoken to different presidents at different times. And you got to wonder whether he might actually be looking at some of that art and saying, well, what is the right way to be thinking about the problem? I know in Nixon's last days, it wasn't art. It's in his book, or in Kissinger's book. He sat down with Kissinger and literally prayed. He's a Quaker. Nixon was a Quaker. Kissinger is a German Jew. And they literally, in the last and final days of the Nixon era, when Nixon was trying to decide, do I resign? Do I fight this? What do I do? They literally sat together in one of the smaller rooms and prayed, according to either his book or I think it was Kissinger's book. And they sort of got to the point where Nixon said, yeah, I really need to resign. I was thinking about that tonight as I was reading some of the articles about how, they're going to go through this whole big impeachment. And I said, they need a Kissinger to sit down with Nixon, because you're doing, or you just explained what you did over 8 to 10 hours with a gentleman in sort of an analogous situation to help him see something that was troubling him. And arguably somebody, it probably wouldn't be Pence, but someone who could get close enough to Trump. Maybe it's Melania. I don't know. She's only married to him, so
Well, I think that if we don't look at everything from the soul level, we're missing a big piece of the puzzle.
Right. And so, there are people that don't think he has a soul, which is problematic. But I think we would all say, everyone, probably even the devil, if you want to use that.
Well, yeah, no, everyone does. And truthfully, I think one of the most, and I've told you this before, but there's the book Messages from the Masters, when Dr. Weiss was much deeper into everything. And then he did a compilation of all the channeled messages, basically. And he got this one vision of Earth being a one-room schoolhouse, and everyone's at different grades. And so you could look at Trump as, he's in his terrible twos. He doesn't have the awareness. He just doesn't. Does it? And you could look at, people who, homicidal maniacs and things like that. It's what was it that broke them? And then it's very interesting when you can start looking at it from a place of compassion in that way. And so that's one of the things I have a gift to show people on the soul level what it is that is trapping them in their own.
Why don't we have you tell people how they reach you? Because we have the recording automatically turns on, and I could send you this show. We actually turned this into a show. I don't think we started that way. But why don't you tell people how they reach you to buy these coaching services? Because you have been doing this for a while, and I don't even think you advertise it, but you have a clientele. How would they reach you to do that? Do they email you? Do they text you? Do they phone you?
Well, yeah, no, you can. I mean, I'm very reachable. So actually at that'smyrony.com, there's a little section for under my Myrony mentoring that has my bio and what I do. And then Alysha at that'smyrony.com. You can reach me there.
And do you do it all by Zoom, or how do you actually do these sessions?
Either Zoom or over the phone. It's whatever people prefer.
So can Donald Trump get an appointment, or does he have to get online? Does he have to
That's pretty funny.
Other people?
That's pretty funny.
Actually, I do think this is a business that is going to flourish for more than just, let's say, your class of doing this, which I think is very special. But I think there will be more and more people providing counseling-like services that are not the traditional psychiatric, psychological, family planning, that sort of advice. I think it's going to be much more personal and much more associated with sharpening your inner eye or sharpening your observation abilities in ways that right now we don't really pay a lot of attention to. So I absolutely think that That's Myrony as a podcast is really introducing this whole class of self-improvement that ultimately
it's self-awareness. The superpower is actually awareness. I say discover Myrony in your inner superpower. Yeah. That basically allows you to look at the external events. Right. And then because you start receiving these internal intuitive pulls, when you start putting the two together, then you're in action. And then you like the synchronicity itself could be the catalyst, and then the Myrony is the action that goes along with it. And when you really are that aware, you'll see it happening over and over and over again. And it's pretty amazing when it starts.
And when it starts, I think everyone that starts to see it or feel it or use it becomes kind of an acolyte for others. That is the viral nature of this that I think will, like 10 years from now, we'll look back and say, yeah, it was such a small group of us that were all sort of saying the same thing. And then it went viral in a way that you could argue, certain things really do go viral when people start to say, wow, this is going to make the human race as a whole much more conscious, much more aware, as you're saying, in a collective sense, what sometimes people call collective consciousness. And that has had sort of a certain retard factor to it, particularly in politics, where it seems like the opposite goes on. There's like no awareness. It's almost like 180 degrees the opposite. So in many ways, I think what you're doing, I have to say the world will applaud. It may take a while for them to recognize.
Hopefully not, because the thing is that Myrony again is the antithesis of selfie. Selfie is only about me. Myrony is recognizing something greater than me. The biggest reason why we take the I out of the irony is that it's not about I, it's about we. It's about something so much greater. So viral things can happen very, very quickly. Who knows, maybe applying to TED Global will, get that opportunity.
Oh, that'll be big. I hope you get it. I hope that happens. I wanted to talk to you after the big Akashic session. So
Yeah, well, I wanted to.
Tune in next time on The Valley Current.